blackfinancialchannel.com. I read an interesting story today about the fact that 1 in 4 workers is thinking about quitting their job after the pandemic. I'm going to break some of this down for you. And also, I have a special guest, Miss Dr. Alicia, who is going to join me today. So get comfortable, buckle up your seatbelt. We're going to talk about things right now on the Black Financial Channel. Let's get it cracking. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Black Financial Channel. This is the blackfinancialchannel.com. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. I'm your friendly neighborhood finance professor, and I'm hanging out with Miss Alicia. How you doing today, babe?
I'm doing good. Good morning.
Good
How are
morning.
you
Good morning.
feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really good. And I was reading this morning on CNBC about a study that says that 1 in 4 workers is thinking about quitting their job after the pandemic. And, I almost feel like that number might even be double for Black people
Okay, do tell. Why is that?
because we have more reasons to be disgruntled.
Oh, after the pandemic. So after the pandemic, that means we have to leave our homes and go back into the office, and we just not feeling it.
Yeah,
Is that what's happening?
yeah. I'd be curious. How many of you, give me a yes or no, as you put your B1 in the chat. How many of you, Ruby D said this morning, or Robbie D, I'm sorry, Robbie D said, I was thinking about quitting my job this morning.
Yeah,
Amber
because it's
Amber Bentley
Wednesday.
said she quit her job too. She said she was tired of the overwork and underpay.
Ah, okay. So you had time during the pandemic to sit back and reflect and think and go, I'm not doing this.
I heard that.
Okay.
So let me ask you this. Give me a yes or no. How many of you over the pandemic have thought about quitting your job? Give me a yes or no if you've been thinking about quitting your job. Hey, Lindell and Kendra Spite and Halima Day. DT says, I'm going to quit my job if they won't let me keep working from home. Debt Free Dad
Yeah.
says people don't want to go in the office, and we created other avenues of income. All right. If you're not quitting, you better be prepared to. Oh, I missed the comment. The pandemic has placed a lot of us in a bad place, says Nathaniel. Okay. Uh, Ursula says, hell yeah, I'm out.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
So what are some of the reasons? How people
Well, let me look
what
this
does
up.
the article say? Okay.
Yeah, and let me know if you can still hear me and everything. I'm switching screens on my phone, but also hit the thumbs up button. Please hit the thumbs up button now and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Black Financial Channel. We cover Black financial news and commentary, unlike anywhere else on earth, because we keep it 100% Black over here. And Black wealth is the only wealth. We're not here to glorify celebrities. We're not here to talk about what white people are talking about. We're here to talk about what Black people need to hear about. That's what matters for us. Um, in 2019, it says here in CNBC, in 2019, workers were quitting their jobs at record rates, actually, even before the pandemic, with labor experts saying workers did so in order to secure the pay raises and promotions they weren't getting from within. Then, beginning in March 2020, the labor market shed 20.5 million jobs, and now, a year later, there are still nearly 7.9 million fewer Americans counted as employed than in February 2020, while the labor force is down 3.9 million. So millions of people are just like, I don't even want to be included in the labor force. I'm out.
Okay. I'm just curious, like you got bills to pay, you have responsibilities. What are people doing for money?
A lot of people are starting their own businesses. They're picking up new skill sets. I know over in the Black Business School, we have a ton of people that, we're not big on the whole get a job thing. We don't shame people for having jobs,
Hmm.
but we let them know that you should know all your options. You shouldn't just, we like a lot of us grew up. I mean, did any of y'all grow up in a household where getting a job was kind of the only responsible thing to do? Did anybody else kind of deal with that? Um, I don't know. Give me a yes or no if that was the kind of household you grew up in. Yeah, I grew up in a household like that, and it's like you grow up and you realize that there's a whole lot of other different ways to make a living besides going to work every day and going to the office every day.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, Teddy Woodson asked, "What do you think about the Black News Channel?" I don't know. I haven't seen it. I think I saw because it's on like regular mainstream TV, and I kind of go to the web to get my news and information. So here's a look at who's planning to leave and what employers should be thinking about as they work to retain employees. Who's leaving and why? Of the 26% of workers planning to leave their employers after the pandemic, 80% are doing so because they're concerned about their career advancement. Meanwhile, 72% say the pandemic caused them to rethink their skill sets. More than half of potential job hoppers have sought out new trainings and skills during the pandemic, possibly to prepare to change jobs in the next few months. So I'd be curious to know how many of you feel like the pandemic, kind of sitting at home every day, made you rethink your life? How many of you? Give me a yes or no. I think that it did. You ever see, it makes reminds me of,
Uh-huh.
you ever see somebody, it's like the opposite of when people go to jail. You ever see a dude that goes to jail and he's like a complete knucklehead, and then he comes back like 2 years later, and if he uses his time properly, in the best way, he comes back like wiser. Like he's
Oh,
like the wisest person in the room. He's read the most books. He's a Muslim now, and he prays every day and is really calm and disciplined and intelligent. And you're like, I really like this guy.
yeah, because jail gives you structure, I think.
Well, it also gives you a chance to reflect.
Uh-huh. Structure, and you get to reflect.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I'm not recommending jail. Like jail is not, because jail could also make somebody worse. Like, they could come back as a terrible person. But they use that time right. Not to say I want anybody to go to jail, right?
hmm
Not to say jail is a good place,
hmm
but it's like there's something about being forced to sit still.
yeah, and there's opportunities for you. I mean, if you're labeled as someone in jail who is reliable, you get jobs. They'll hire you. You get
Yeah,
jobs in jail.
but they're terrible jobs, and you make like $1 a day.
Yeah,
So
but it gives you that sort of discipline and structure that can help you function on the outside.
yeah, but I don't like the white man's
Of
discipline.
course, we
I
don't
don't
like
want
it.
right. We're
Of
not.
course
I don't
not.
want the white. I don't even want to even sound like we're praising the white man's
I'm
discipline.
just explaining. I'm just
Mm,
explaining what it
yeah,
could be that people come out of jail and they're wiser and reflective and I think what's happening is that we're starting to understand the importance of the quality of the relationships of people around us.
yeah.
So maybe people are I've talked to a lot of people who say, you know what, I really want to work from home. The only type of job I want to have now is work from home. And so if the pandemic is easing, maybe there's some pressure to return to the office, and people are not wanting to do that. I got to get up in the morning. You shave off. I shave off a couple of hours a day of my time just because I'm working from home.
hmm You know,
You know?
I guess it's I don't know. Maybe this is a benefit of me having way too much education.
Uh-huh.
Because even when I was in my 20s, I thought about that. Like I was like, look at how much time people spend at a job where you're around people that don't even like you.
That's right.
You're away from your children. And I studied the history of industrialization. I remember thinking,
Yeah.
who taught you that it makes sense to spend more time with your oppressor than with your own damn kids?
Yeah, and recruit I mean just the amount of time it takes to drive to work.
Yeah.
I don't know how people like drive into the Chicago every day and go to work. That's like an hour drive one way sometimes.
Well, that was why I took the job at Syracuse when I first got my doctorate. I went to Syracuse because I lived 13 minutes from my job,
Yeah.
and I only had to go to work twice a week. And I counted up how many thousands of hours I saved in my life by not having to do some crazy hour-long commute. Because I know people in big cities that'll commute for an hour each way every day,
No. Oh my
and
gosh.
then you're at work 8 to 10 hours a day. Like, you're missing your life.
hmm
Your life should not. Your 80%, 70% of your waking hours on this earth should not be spent in an office.
Yeah, because we're learning that we're just as productive in our own homes. We're
hmm
just as productive. We're getting stuff done. Business is happening. We don't need to be in an office
Yeah,
for it to
yeah.
happen.
Yeah, so apparently a large percentage of workers are, after the pandemic, are just rethinking their life. And the
Yeah.
reason the reason I compared it to jail, except the opposite of it, in a way, but then again, some people felt like it was jail when you're kind of locked at home and Dr. Fauci tells you can't come outside and all this other stuff. And it seems like I just saw a lot of people really reflecting. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
also breaking your patterns, breaking your it's snapping you out of your trance, like in the movie Soul, how they were talking about how you could be in the zone in a good way or a
hmm
bad way, and people that are in the zone in a bad way are stuck in a rut, and where you got a habit. Get up, go to work, come home, go to bed. Get up, go to work, come home, go to
Uh-huh.
bed. Get up, go to work, come home, go to bed. And then you get that pattern disrupted, and then you form a new pattern.
Yeah, you
Kind
form a new pattern and it's much more comfortable. You're starting to realize that, oh, this is much better than how it used to be. I don't want to go
of,
back to that. I think that's what it is. I don't want to go back to how my life was in this particular way.
Hmm.
pre-pandemic?
Yeah. It's like, to me, it's like being forced to take a break from a bad relationship.
Ah,
Like first you're really sad because your toxic, abusive partner decided that they don't want to be around you no more. So you spend a few days saying, "Baby, baby, please, please take me back."
oh, is that what
Yeah,
happens?
and you're sad, and then one day you look around, and you're like, "Oh my God, look at all these pretty ladies! I could be dating one of them." And then you find one that's really nice, and you start getting
What
excited
am I
again.
thinking?
And then yeah, and then that crazy toxic person calls you back. It's like, okay, I decided I was gonna give you another chance. You're like,
Too late now.
let's hold. All right, you're like, let's hold off. Let's stick a pin in that. Let's stick a pin in that. Yeah, and you move on to something better. So sometimes when your cycle gets broken, like initially you're sad, but that could be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, the pandemic has been an accelerator. It has made some good relationships better and some bad relationships worse. It's forcing us to deal with some things that we didn't want to deal with in our lives, like our relationships with our significant other, our relationship with our job, what we want to do with ourselves. I
Mm.
like it. It's all a silver lining.
Yeah, yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too. Sheldon says I really needed to hear this. Good. I'm glad we helped somebody. Because
Yeah.
I think that it's sometimes that's what you need. You need to know other people get what you're saying, like other people understand what you're feeling.
Yeah. Well, the bad part of the pandemic is all the isolation from
Mm,
people. Like here we are, we're a house of 5 people in this house. There's some people who just sitting at home alone
mm,
and they used to be more connected with people and they just now they're just not.
yeah.
So it's not so great for many people.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not. It's not. And it's funny. I know in my personal life, I've always lived isolated and to a point. Like I've been working from home my whole life, pretty much. Even when I was in Syracuse, I did most of my work from home because I just kind of felt like it. I also noticed a lot of time gets wasted. When you're at your job and just talking to people, people come in your office and talking to
Oh,
you,
they do. Yeah.
interrupting what you got to do. So I would stay home. Even when I was in Syracuse, I would stay home just because I didn't want to be interrupted. But that was my
Yeah.
personality type. I was more of an introvert. But for people that need that social interaction, like you're in that category. I think you
Yeah.
like to talk and stuff, and I like, and I'm learning how to talk by talking to you. But it's
Well, you're
like,
not alone now. You got a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people around you now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's something where it's like, it was really funny to watch the pandemic because I was like, oh, okay, now the rest of the world is coming home. Like they're gonna be home with me, you know. And I loved it. It was like nice to see everybody getting online because there's so much with technology that we
Yeah.
had discovered, like in the Black Business School. Like when we first got started, we didn't have a lot of money to do the things we wanted to do. We couldn't buy a building, so we used technology a lot. And a lot of our team members work from home and they loved it because they have a work-life balance. And you're supposed to have a work-life, or even better than a work-life balance, you're supposed to have a
Yeah.
work-life blend where you can find a way to live your life, which is really what's most important, to live your life and still make your money.
Yeah, and I think we're learning that there's a lot of money to be made digitally.
Hmm.
That can be a career. And even if it's less money, if you start thinking about your quality of life, I'll take a pay cut for a quality of life. Like there's
Hmm.
no price for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about happiness, I figured out what happiness was for me over time. I don't know if anybody can benefit from this, but I used to think happiness was like when you want to be rich or famous or whatever, or get promotions and accolades and awards. And I realized that stuff doesn't mean anything. But then again, maybe I had to have some of those things to know that, okay, this ain't gonna make you happy. It's really like the little things. It's like, did I get enough sleep last night? If
Uh-huh.
I didn't get enough sleep, I'm grumpy. It don't matter.
Yes, you are.
It don't matter. You could give me an Academy Award and $1 million and whatever, and 1,000 promotions, and if I didn't get enough sleep, I'm gonna be pissed off and unhappy, right? Or drinking plenty of water, being around people that you love, people that you actually like,
Yeah.
not dealing with toxic people, or racist people, you know. So that stuff is
Oh.
that's really good. Doing the things that matter in your life, like spending time with your children and your parents, and not be having to tell your kids like, well, the reason I missed your whole childhood is because I was off chasing some white man's job.
Yeah, well, they what they say is I was working to put clothes on your back and food on the table, and they're
Mm.
thinking that those things are more important. But maybe we're not eating steak, maybe we're eating chicken, but we're spending more time together.
That's true.
you
That's
know
true. Yeah, yeah. I think I mean, I think that the ability to provide we should never underestimate how important that is, right, for parents and stuff like that. But I do think that a lot of times we live in kind of a superficial world where people don't think about what's really going to make them happy. They kind of do the things that other people tell them is going to make them happy, and then they find out they're not happy. Then they're not happy that they're not happy.
and then they blame you. I did what you told me to do and it didn't work out, and I ain't
Right.
happy, and it's your fault.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta figure out your own little happiness formula. And I think that work is an important part of that because you spend so much time at your job, whatever you choose as a profession. I tell you the other day, I told everybody right here on this podcast. Actually, before I move on, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Can y'all hit the thumbs up button real quick? I would appreciate that very much. Um, but yeah, I said, I don't even believe we have to tell our kids what we think their profession should be. Like
Hmm.
we like to say, "Oh, you should be a doctor. You should be a lawyer. You should be a dentist."
Uh-huh.
I
Hmm.
don't do that anymore.
You know what? My parents never did that to me.
Yeah.
Actually, my parents gave me little guidance. So, like, we're trying to get Quincy into college, and like we're giving him so much support. I didn't get that. It was just okay. Pick a school, like, and I come from college educated family members. Like everyone in my
Mm.
family been to college, but I had no guidance at all. They were just like, okay, pick one. And because I graduated in top 10 of my class in high school, you automatically get admitted into any college. So I only applied to two colleges. I could have applied to a whole bunch of colleges. I only applied to two.
Oh, really? Wow.
I just applied to two colleges. I got accepted at both of them because I knew I would.
Wow.
And no one gave me guidance on which one to go to. I had
Mm.
a conversation with my friend, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to Indiana." I said, "Oh, wow, let's be roommates." And that's how I picked my. That's how I picked
Oh,
the
really?
college, and that's how we met, though, boys. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
If she had gone to the other school,
You'd have went
we
to the other
never would have
school.
met. I would have
Wow.
gone to that school. That would have been done deal.
This you went to Ivy Tech. Well, it's funny how the little things make a big difference.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think it's yeah. I don't believe that you have to tell your kids to pick a profession per se, like,
yeah.
and put them in some sort of box. Like I thought about it, right? Like people that want to be doctors, they go to college, 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, then they do their residency and internships and all that stuff. And it could take as long as 10 to 15 years of your life to do that. And a lot of people, I understand that if you really want to be a doctor, like if you really like helping sick people or being around blood and guts, or if you're a
Well,
proctologist and you really want to be at somebody's butt, or you want to
it's very
deliver
important.
really want to deliver babies, then that makes sense. But if you are doing it just for the money, I think the big question one must ask is 15 to 15 years of my life worth having a higher salary? Is
Oh
there?
my goodness, it's like kiss your 20s goodbye and go to medical school. Not that that's if that's your passion, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, good grief,
Well,
it's quite a bit of pressure. You better love it
well,
if you're
yeah,
gonna dedicate and then take out those loans because medical school is super expensive.
yeah. Well, when you're thinking about what your financial goals are, it kind of comes down to the basic idea of having a capital base, meaning like assets that you can draw on that will help you pay your bills, and then figuring out how to make enough money to function. Like it might be like $4 or $5 thousand a month, right? And so
Wow.
one of the reasons why I'm a big advocate of investing for your kids is because when you invest for your kids, like you do things like the $5 a day investing plan, you can build a capital base for them where they have $100,000 in the bank, which changes your decision making big time.
Oh yeah.
If you're 27, you got 100 grand to lean on in case of emergency. You're not going to make the same decisions as somebody who's scrambling every day, going
Uh-huh.
to work for people that hate them just to make a student loan payment and pay the rent.
Well, it's just your attitude about work. So I knew a guy who was a trust fund baby, and
Mm-hmm.
he just had a light about him. He was jovial, he was positive, he was always smiling. Really great guy. His name is Dave. I'm like, Dave,
So he sounds like a white guy.
he was a white guy, but he had a trust fund, And he told me, he said, my main, this is the money I spent, the money I earned for this job, it just goes to my toys.
Mm,
Because he had money. He had lots and lots of money through his trust fund. But he said, I just use money for my job just to pay for toys. But
mm,
he did so well at work because he was doing what he wanted to do. He had a great attitude and he was successful and he wasn't stressed out. It was
yeah.
so nice. So that it gives your children freedom.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
financial need is a huge monkey on the back of a lot of people. Like that becomes, a really top obsession. And I think one of the reasons why financial literacy is important is because it seems to me that if money is one of your top obsessions, then why not learn everything you can about money so that you can minimize that stress and that burden, and make sure your children learn those things so that they're not constantly scrambling and doing things they don't want to do because of money. I mean, it really becomes slavery. Capitalism is a system where if you don't have capital, you
Uh,
become a slave to the capitalist.
yeah, and if you can't contribute to capitalist society, then you're out on the fringes and good farewell to you,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, like that slavery comes in because if you ask most people, like, well, what do you want to do today? They're like, well, I got to go to work. That's slavery.
Oh,
When you say I got to go to work instead of saying I choose to go to work, I mean
yeah.
that is slavery. Like somebody's controlling your actions. That's what slavery is. Slavery is when you can't do what you want to do. So, I think that if you talk about things like freedom and happiness, which are connected, because they talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that means that happiness is something you must pursue. It means you must figure out where it is and go get it. Well, if you're not free, if I got you in shackles, if you're chained to a tree, how are you
Uh-huh.
going to pursue anything? You can't pursue shit.
Well, I think what this article is saying is that now that we are somewhat not as shackled because we're not in these places of employment physically, people are starting to say, I'm breaking out. I'm going to start thinking about what's really important to me.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So,
Yeah.
with the pandemic, what I saw with a lot of people is originally it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't know how to, respond to this. And then they found a way they just learned how to swim. They figured it out.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, now that I figured this out, I have more freedom. I have more options now, right? That's another thing. Freedom and options and happiness are all connected.
And choices,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
type of choices and the consequences for that. And yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
When you have options, you can make different choices
All right.
because you have more freedom, and you can find more happiness that way. And I think people, when it's all said and done, I believe honestly they're going to be happier. I've been saying for a long time, I want that we've always believed Black people should, for example, educate our own kids. Well, the pandemic was great because the pandemic
That's what we're
forced us
doing.
to do that, right? Create our own jobs and support Black businesses. So I think that at the end, after all the pandemic is said and done, I think Black people will be stronger economically than we were before. We have more investors than we ever had before. We have more entrepreneurs than we've
Yeah.
ever had before. And a lot of people are putting things together for their kids. So their kids are not going to be stuck with those hard choices, right? Rock and hard place situations like their parents.
And it's so important not only to leave money for your children, but it's also important to raise them so that they can have your values, so that they don't take the money and run off and do whatever
Mm-hmm.
trifling stuff that they do. You know, you want to have make sure that they do that for their children, and they can instill those values
That's true.
in their families.
70% of all wealthy families lose all their wealth in one generation because their kids throw all the money away.
Oh, I could see it. I could see it.
Hmm.
I could see it happen
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah. So anyway, so we're about to hit on out, but do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe button. Please do that. Help us grow this channel. Also, if you are interested in putting your children in our Black Business School for Kids, feel free to go to blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. The URL is right there on the screen. That's blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. The first month is free, so feel free to take a look. Daniel, can you facilitate a new Black Wall Street idea? We've got plenty of stuff going on. So come check out what we got going on in the Black Business School. We have a lot of things happening that I think are going to be beneficial to a lot of people. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening, and we will see you soon.